We finally won something. All right. I didn't actually realize it was the 50s. I thought it would have been the 60s. So that's pretty cool. I don't know how many shows or what access, was like for most people. I'm sure it wasn't that common still in the 50s, but nonetheless, there it is. Now, most everywhere else would have had to wait till the 60s. Now, what's funny is you look at some other countries, it's kind of crazy. They had to wait till the 70s or 80s, even in Eastern Europe, and of course, all throughout the African continent. Australia was pretty early on in the 60s. People do mention in the comments kind of like what I hinted at, though, even here in the U.S., where we supposedly got it first. It's not like it was common. So people are mentioning that in the 80s, they were watching Scooby-Doo on a black and white TV. And that's just it, right? I'm sure this kind of stuff, remember, nowadays people might have, 4 or 5 TVs in their house, but that's not how it used to be. You usually only had one if you were lucky, and it's not like it was the latest and greatest tech. So was the average person in the U.S. like very commonly watching color TV? I would say no, not even in the 70s. Now, politics is definitely not my strong suit, nor is Italian politics specifically, but I actually did find this pretty interesting. I would love to see any context you guys want to put in the comments down below. This is the result of the 1946 Italian referendum for a monarchy or a republic. And this is pretty cool to see when it's this detailed. You could see an overwhelming majority of the northern half was for blue there, which would have been republic. And then, of course, monarchy being the red was definitely more dominant in the south, although, you do see some blue sprinkled in. And you do see some red sprinkled in the blue on the very northern borders here. So more so, I thought this was interesting, but I'm also missing some knowledge and context with this. So it looks like the final tally was that the Republic did win out, obviously. And that, was 12.7 around there million votes to 10.7. So 54% to 45, Republic winning out that vote. A lot of times you would expect it to just kind of be more sporadic, but such a clear divide between North and South with this type of thing, kind of fascinating. I guess what I'm asking is, why was the South specifically so much more for a monarchy? And why was the North so much more for a republic? I thought this map was hilarious because I've showed basically this map for Europe before, what countries have the higher rates of, drinking and which countries are lower. And this breaks it down actually by counties in the U.S. But what's funny is you don't even need to see it by county. You could just see the overwhelming majority, literally the whole U.S. state of Wisconsin, which is right above me in Illinois. Wisconsin's where you go to party and drink. They have a lot of amazing local beers that are well revered throughout the country. And they like it. They never miss a drink. You can see they're kind of in a league of their own when it comes to the whole U.S. They're the only country dominated by red and purple on this chart. Did I just call Wisconsin a country? My apologies. Caught that in editing. Thought it was hilarious. This one's a little bit of a geographical oddity. I did not realize that former Yugoslavia, the shape of it, looks indeed very similar, like about 90, maybe 92% similar to the shape of Iran. I mean, it's kind of crazy, right? There's a couple little differences, but, at first glance, very similar, even with the dip up top and the angle on the west coast here. I feel like with so many countries in the world, you actually don't see many country outlines where they look the same. They're all surprisingly different. This is rare. I always find these interesting as light pollution maps. This is of Britain, of course. And you could see just massive light surge. Again, London, right? The London area is just huge in this context, right? And then, of course, you see some other bright blips on the map, but otherwise a pretty sparse central and especially northern Britain, right? Looking pretty quiet and pretty dark up there. So, again, pretty interesting to see how countries end up forming. Definitely a heavy population curve to the southern end. Northern Britain is where you go to get away from everything, apparently. Someone mentioned in the comments, I actually have to agree, it's kind of fascinating when you zoom in. You can pretty much see like what looks to be, I'm assuming just like a major interstate or highway, like lit up, right? Like almost perfectly. And obviously there would be things around that. But then look at the vastness in between. Like there's truly, I'm assuming, beautiful nature up this way, just not a lot of people living in these parts. I mean, wow. I also find it interesting how there's a lot of population on this kind of little coast right here, but not over here, right? So like why up here and not down here? It's another one. I mean, it's just more of a curiosity thing. Well, here's an interesting map of Ireland you probably haven't seen. It's a phone. Okay, and it's a legit like phone, but it's a legit map too. I mean, we have actual cities marked out on this. I didn't know this was a thing. It's actually kind of cool. Do they make this for every country? I feel like they should, right? Do you want an Ireland phone? Do you want a Germany phone? You know, maybe a Japan phone? Some countries, it might be a little weird. It might be a little awkward to make the phone work. It might be kind of awkward to hang on your wall, but I like the idea. Even though I'm not Irish, hate the color green, and don't have a phone jack in my apartment, I still weirdly kind of want this. That's how I feel. I mean, I definitely like the color green. I like Ireland. And no one uses these kinds of phones anymore. That's true. But I still agree that, yes, I do want this too. I find this oddly satisfying. Now, here's an interesting one. This is 5G coverage over the whole world. And also, you know, the darker the color is older coverage from like 2019, 2020 was implemented, and lighter colors towards 2023. Now, what's interesting is more of Europe is covered. If you actually look at North America, you know, Mexico and Canada barely have any coverage when it comes to 5G. The U.S. certainly does, but look at it's literally only in the eastern third or maybe eastern half, I guess you could say. The West and the interior Mountain West, you barely have anything unless you're literally way up on the coast. So I found that pretty interesting. Like I said, most of Europe is like heavily covered with the exception of the north and like far east. But nowhere else. I didn't realize that this really hadn't caught on anywhere else with the exceptions of some big players like India and, of course, far eastern Asia with the likes of China and Japan and South Korea. Australia and New Zealand also in on the 5G game, and it might look like they barely have any, although most people living there would have access. Wouldn't you know that most people living there, especially when we talk about Australia, they literally live in these spots. The rest of it, they don't need 5G because literally, look, no one's out there, right? Everyone lives on this East Coast pretty much. These are your chances of being born on each continent. Sorry, y'all, that love Antarctica. I always say that wrong, Antarctica. I'll just say it fast. It sounds more natural. Sorry, you have a 0% chance, all right? Also, sorry, those who love Australia, or just the oceanic region in general, you have less than a 1% chance of being born there. So if you were born in this region, consider yourself rare. I mean, the rarest out of all the continents. It's pretty interesting to think about, and I'm guessing a lot of people that live in Australia or, you know, close to it, I bet they didn't know that. I feel like this is pretty cool to see. Even, I guess, me being born in the U.S., trust me, sometimes I'm very proud of it. Sometimes I'm like, why, right? I kid. But pretty rare as well. Less than an 8% chance of being born in North America. Yeah, honestly, the Americas as a whole, pretty rare. High chances of being born in Asia. They lead by a considerable margin. Again, one of those things that it seems like an odd map at first, and it's not something you'd ever guess. But when you see the numbers, it's like, wow, okay. I guess I was born in a pretty rare place. Australia over here, like, yeah, we know we're special. In poor New Zealand, I should have mentioned. Dang it. I did notice that New Zealand wasn't even on there. Shame. Like, so many maps forget New Zealand. It's why? Why does all the map people out there, how do you keep forgetting New Zealand? How? It's such a beautiful place. New Zealand is that sibling that which gets shadowed by his elders. Shadowed, more like disappeared. Yeah. The Great Fire of London overlaid on modern London. That's pretty crazy. Looks like it was in a huge area, I should say. I don't really know much about this. This would be something I have to research. Great Fire of 1666. That was quite a while ago. If any of you remember, you know, if you were there, you'll have to tell me about it. In 1666. What's crazy is someone links this map of, obviously London was smaller back then, and the fire took place. It almost like just decimated the whole city, from what I'm understanding. When we look at the city wall here,